Ever wonder how to make money from your genealogy blog? And I'm not talking about Google AdSense. In this episode, we find out. Welcome to the Genealogy Professional Podcast, the resource for transitional and experienced genealogists who want to create a successful business. I'm your host, Miriam Pierre-Louis. Here you'll learn from professionals all around the world who work in the field of genealogy. Are you ready to get started? Then let's get going. Welcome to episode 54 of the Genealogy Professional Podcast. Today we head to North Carolina to get to know genealogist Lisa Lisson. Lisa, welcome to the Genealogy Professional Podcast.
Thank you, Mary. Thanks for having me.
Lisa, let's get started by having you tell us what you call your business. In that, do you call it Lisa Lisson or do you have a company name? And then describe to us what you do.
Sure. So I call it Are You My Cousin? And it is a blog, but my website address is lisalisson.com. So it's a little bit of both to find it that way. But I'm a blogger, and what I do is I teach genealogy through blog posts, and my goal is to really try to take the overwhelm out of genealogy research for people. I try to give how-tos. I'll try to introduce new databases that I find that are interesting, that might be of interest. I try to show people how to think outside of the box a bit and explore genealogy resources that aren't necessarily your typical types of resources people go to. So I try to cover a lot of different areas with my blog post.
So I can imagine people are asking in their minds already, you're a blogger. How do you create a business around being a blogger?
So that's a good question. And actually I do it several different ways. So I am a blogger, and if someone reads my blog post, they'll see ads. So I do have ads on my site, and I do that not to annoy my readers, but because I want to bring free content to my readers. And that is what allows me to have some income to be able to provide the free content for people. But I also speak. I speak at genealogy societies. I speak at regional meetings. I spoke at Roots Tech this year, so I'm a speaker as well. And then I also create my own ebooks as well.
So if you were to break down your genealogy income into a percentage, so I'm not asking any figures, just into a percentage.
Right.
How would it look in terms of, like you said, the ads and the books and the genealogy speaking?
It can vary quite a bit throughout the year. I also do affiliate income as well. So I would probably say about half right now is ads, and then the others are pretty much evenly split between speaking and affiliates and my own books as well.
So is that the ads just on your website?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
And you have a YouTube channel as well?
Yes, I do.
And has that reached monetization yet or not?
Not yet. I anticipate hopefully to have reached that I'm hoping by the end of the summer. That was kind of an interesting thing that I never set out to start having a YouTube channel. It was a place where I would park my videos that I would put in my blog post, until one day about sometime last summer, I looked at it and thought, oh, wow, there are actually people watching this thing. So then I started doing more because people do seem to enjoy that. So,
okay, so in another year, it'll be interesting to see where you're at.
Yes,
with the ad revenue from the blog versus the ad revenue from the YouTube channel.
Right.
All right, let's step back a little bit. Most people come to genealogy from a different career. Tell us what you were doing before genealogy and when you thought you would head into professional genealogy.
So my background is I was actually a physical therapist, and I worked in healthcare up until about 5 or 6 years ago. But it was a good career. I worked typically part-time while I raised my kids, and probably I would say about 6 or 7 years ago, I knew that I wanted to leave that and do something more along the lines of genealogy, but didn't really know what at that point. And, I had the blog, but to be honest, it really was just a family blog at that point. It was just to keep the family up to date on interesting things I found about our family. And so that's really all it was for many years. And then I'd say 4 or 5 years ago, I got very intentional about, I'm going to make this happen, and I'm going to I'm going to turn this blog into a business. And that's when I just made the switch. So what I did is I took some e-courses in what at the time I guess you call the mom blog sphere, or the lifestyle bloggers, because they figured this out a long time ago. And there really weren't many genealogists doing, there were a lot of us blogging, but they weren't doing quite what I wanted to do, which was create the business out of an actual blog. And so I ended up spending a lot of time in the mom blog field. I joined a couple mastermind groups where, trust me, I was the only genealogist in the group, but I learned how to do it. That's where I learned how to build it to be what it needed to be. I learned the tech stuff. I learned how to write. I learned how to create an email list. I learned how to market everything, because I guess you say I bootstrapped it from the get-go.
Who are some of the people that you learned from?
A lot of them, actually, some of them are not still doing that anymore, but Blog Clarity, Melissa Cuthbertson, I think is her name, over on Blog Clarity, has a wonderful resources there. I learned a lot from her, and I still do. She's got some basic blogging, as well as she's actually evolved into a Pinterest person, but she's got a lot of really great resources. Amy Lynn Andrews was one of the early ones that I followed, and she's actually still out there teaching as well. I actually took I always call it my little blogging business class. That's not what it was, but that's what I called it, because it's what I learned from a woman, but she's actually no longer teaching that anymore. That she's gone into the corporate world, I think. But that's where I learned a lot of what I do. I listen to a lot of podcasts on women and entrepreneurship outside of the genealogy world, because the principles still apply to what we're doing.
The mastermind class that you did, I've listened to a lot of entrepreneurs and things like that. Pat Flynn, I don't know if you've heard of him. Mm-hmm. He's talked about masterminds, and there's a sort of specific way that they go about them. What was the format? You said you're the only genealogist. What was the format of the mastermind? Give people a sense of what was involved and what you get out of it.
Sure. So it was 6 to 8 weeks. I don't remember exactly. And each week we had a lesson. She would give a video lesson for the principal. Then we had worksheets that we would do, very detailed worksheets that we would do. We were divided into smaller groups of like 4 or 5, and we had a mentor for each group, and who was also a very well-known blogger or in that sphere at the time. And so they were there to help us, let us ask questions about how to structure something, how to set up a blog post, because there are reasons to set it up specific ways for that type of thing. So that was a really good way to learn. A lot of it was marketing. So each week we had a focus, and we would keep working through that each week. And then we had, for a time period after that, they were available to us to answer questions, so that, as we learned these things and started to implement them, questions come up. So they were still available for a certain period of time afterwards to let us ask those questions.
So was there a specific goal with the mastermind? Like they were going to set you up with a website, and they were going to set you up with learning how to do graphics or this or that? Is that kind of thing?
Not so much. All of us, one of the premises for us, we were all bloggers at that point and had a blog and had one going, but it was to really get us to focus on our audience, to really identify who our audience was, what it was they want to know, how to learn what our audience wants. That was one of the biggest things I took away, and really how to create that solid email list and how to use an email list to reach out and build that relationship with our readers.
And at what point in all of this did you know that you wanted to focus on genealogy? Because you went from the PT, and then you knew you wanted to go towards blogging, but it doesn't sound like at the start you were exactly clear. When did you really have a strong sense of what your focus would be?
I think I had that sense that it would be genealogy very early on. I just couldn't quite get my hand. I struggled, to be honest, for a while trying to get a focus for that genealogy blog. And that's really what the mastermind class helped me do, was really help me find that focus. and niche it down a little bit so that I could move forward with it. But I think I always knew it would be a genealogy type of blog. It needed to grow a bit, and I needed to grow a bit with it to be able to let it become what it needed to become. I've been doing this very intentionally for 5 years now, and so it does take a while. There is no fast tracking when it comes to blogging.
So what would you say the focus of your blog is?
It's about helping people learn the basics for their genealogy research and to keep moving forward. As I said, I like to take the overwhelm out of the research. I want to take things that might be difficult or people might perceive as struggling with, and to show people that it doesn't have to be quite that hard, that we can do this, that we just need to break it down and work forward. So for instance, one of the most common things that my readers tell me is a problem for them or something that they struggle with is organization. So for instance, the newest post that went out today, I showed them how to organize their Chrome toolbar, their Chrome bookmark bar, so that they would be more efficient with their research and be able to find what they needed when they needed it quickly. And people have already emailed me. It's like, oh, that makes so much sense. I never thought to do it, but it saves time. It saves them time, and they're not always constantly going back and looking and where did I put this and that type of thing. That's the type of thing I try to show people how to do.
As you've been growing your blog, have you used a tool like Google Analytics or some sort of tool that will give you information about where the people came from who hit your blog posts?
Absolutely. I use Google Analytics and have for years. I basically try to do a quick check on it every week. I don't get so focused on it, but I do try to check it every week to see where my traffic is coming from. And so I'm always monitoring that to see, and if there's a drop off, maybe it's the platform, maybe it's I did something on the website. So I do keep a track on that to see where it's coming from and where people are going on the website, because that tells me what they're interested in.
So where are people coming from? I imagine that people are coming from Facebook, maybe people are coming from Pinterest, and maybe some people are coming from organic Google searches. What channels do you see?
So right now, I'd say my largest percentage comes from Pinterest right now. Then I get a lot of what's called, direct traffic, because every week my listeners or my readers will get an email from me to just kind of update them what's going on for the week and a link to the newest blog post. So I get a lot from that. Facebook is picking up for me. That Facebook can kind of come and go a little bit. I get a few here and there from the others like Twitter and Instagram and YouTube. I don't get a ton from those, but I do get a few. And then the other part would be organic Google search, which is what I've been focused a lot on in the last 6 months, trying to build that a little bit more.
I noticed that you have some tools and offerings on your website. You've got an email list that people can subscribe to. You have a free e-course and you have a Facebook group. What is the path that people are usually taking? Say somebody randomly searches on Google and they find one of your posts. What typically is the path that new person would take as they're winding their way through what you have to offer? Usually
what they do, if they found me on Google, and once they hit the website, they're usually will come in through the free offer that is there, which is, I believe that's the one that's the 5 reasons why you might not be finding your ancestor in the census record. That's kind of where they'll start, and then they'll go through a welcome series. I have a whole series of emails that I try to space out over a couple weeks so I don't overwhelm anybody. Just kind of welcoming them to my website and tells them a little bit about who I am and what I do. And, I ask them questions to share with me, things that might be frustrating for them in genealogy and what kinds of things they're looking for. So it's kind of the beginning of building that relationship with my readers.
All right, so you have a work with me section, genealogy consultations, and let's discuss your genealogy research project. Tell me a little bit about what those involve.
I do some client research. A lot of my folks who are my readers are actually very good researchers in their own right, but they might be stuck and need a fresh eye on what their research. I think a lot of us get to that point where, you just need somebody else to give you a fresh look on what your research problem is. And so I have a lot of folks who will do that. They'll either just schedule a short, quick 15-minute discovery call, which is free, just to be able to say, hey, is this something you think you could help me with? Or do you have some ideas? And then others will, I do have set times like for an hour consult where we can sit down and online, either through on the phone or through webinar type of format, where I can sit down and look at it and go through step by step and get into more in-depth types of consulting with them on their research.
But you're not doing a lot of that.
Usually at any one time, I'll have one or two clients that I'm working with at a time.
How do you engage your readers to feel like they're a part of a community and so that they stick around? Because you want them to read your blog, right? Because that's how you're going to get the ad revenue. So,
right.
So you need to create this sense of community. So how do you build that?
So I do that a couple ways. Now, first of all, I have a Facebook group. I frequently invite people to join the group, and I just will periodically invite them through the email that they get every Monday. And that's a lot of times where we can go and talk, and I'll drop in there, and I try to build that community by asking, they're kind of my group. I call them my super fans, and they are some fabulous folks in that group. But they help each other out. They help me out. If I have a question about that, I try to, when they have a question they put in there, I try to make sure I get in there and help answer the question. What I'm finding lately is that when a member might have a research question, before I can even get in there, the others have chimed in and helped them answer it. So I love that collaboration back and forth. But when I hop in there, I'm like, guys, I need to know what are you guys interested in? What are you really struggling with right now? They are right there for me to tell me, kind of give me that idea of what's going on in the world, their genealogy world, so that I can make sure that I'm creating content that they want, that they like. The other thing I do is I do a Facebook Live every Thursday afternoon, and that's a chance when people can come on and they can ask questions. And I encourage people to ask me questions live. And when I usually have a topic for it, and sometimes I bring on guests, so it won't just be me. It might be a guest that I bring on, and we try to get a conversation going that way too, so that we can make sure that we are meeting everybody's needs that way. And then I talk about my email list a lot, because it is really kind of like it's such the basis for how I communicate with my readers. And if they email me, I will email them back. Sometimes I'm a little slow because I do get a lot of emails. I will tell you that. But if they take the effort to email me, I'm going to take the effort to email them back, so that I want to make sure that we're making those connections.
Your email list is your main vehicle for letting your readers know that you have new blog posts and things like that?
It is, because in a sense, social media is very fickle. Pinterest does big changes about twice a year that usually affects my traffic. Facebook, they can change an algorithm and that can affect things. But with the emails, people are really very gracious. They actually like getting my emails. When I was at Roots Tech, I had people stopping by the table telling me, "Oh, I look forward to your email every Monday. I really look forward to it. Love to get you." People email me and go, "Thank you for your email." It is not a big old newsletter. It is fairly short. You did mention I'm from North Carolina. This is a true North Carolina accent. I like to say I write in a North Carolinian accent. I write like I talk. So I don't want it to be stuffy, and I always want to make sure, I always tell them, I will never send you fluff. If I send you an email, I am sending you something that I truly believe in. And I think that's part of it. And I think that comes through for them. And all that social media could go away, but I still have my email list, and they are my super fans, and they're the ones who want to hear from me. They have invited me into their inbox, and I will always make sure I'm giving them quality information so that they will trust me and enjoy building that relationship more.
Now, you're the first genealogy blogger that I've noticed, there may be others, but who is using ConvertKit. Why did you decide to go with ConvertKit? People usually think of like MailChimp or Constant Contact or something like that.
I did. I actually was with MailChimp for the first bit. And because at that time, if you had a certain number, you were up, it was free. And like I said, I bootstrapped this, so I was going for that. But at the time I was using it, they did not have some of the ability to segment or to create the funnels that I wanted to create, like the welcome series that I wanted to create. So because I was basically hanging out with the mom bloggers and the lifestyle bloggers in those mastermind groups and in those educational courses, ConvertKit was very popular at the time. It still is, quite frankly. And so they convinced me, so I went ahead and changed over, and I am glad I did. At the time, it was a bit pricier, but at the point where I'm at this point, it's all about the same across the board these days. So I've just been very pleased with it and stayed with it. It's very flexible, and it allows me to segment easily within my list.
So you can send certain emails on a particular topic to certain people on the list.
Maybe it was last spring. I did a photo scanning challenge. Actually, I guess this was last fall. Basically, if you clicked a link, and that would put you on to that particular segment of the list. So not everybody get it. Only the people who wanted to get it. If they click through, they were the only ones who would get that particular one. So I can segment it that way to make sure people are getting what they want and not getting things they don't want.
On the website ConvertKit, you can have a free plan for 500 subscribers. $29 a month up to 1,000 subscribers, and then they don't tell you. That's interesting.
Then you have to add it in. Yes, it is. So what I can tell you, the more you have, the more you pay. But technically, you should be converting those. You should be converting those people into customers and ad revenue, et cetera, et cetera. So it is pricey. It's not one people start out with typically.
So what I want to know about ConvertKit is how easy is it to set up?
It is very easy. They have tutorials and videos, and it just walks you right through it. So it's very, very easy.
So you feel like it's worth the effort and worth the cost to go with a site like that?
I think so. It does depend on somebody's budget, but I knew that I was in this for the long haul. And so I decided, because I knew the value of a strong email list, I knew what I was going to be doing with it, that it was worth having that extra, going ahead and setting it up and staying with one and not having to change later on. Because if you change, then it would have changed all my signups, and everything would have been, and all my opt-ins would have been changed at the same time. So it was beneficial to me, definitely, to go ahead and pay a little more upfront and build within the system and have everything solid, so that I can be where I'm at today and not have to worry about it.
I'd also like to talk a little bit about the ad management on your site, because I notice it's called Mediavine Ad Management. Yes. And again, I've never seen a genealogy blogger. I'm not saying there isn't another genealogy blogger using it, but I'm obviously not out there looking. So tell me about Mediavine, because historically, the big one would be Google Ads. And you've obviously made a decision not to use Google Ads. You're using Mediavine. So what is it about that organization that you like?
You're right. I haven't seen other genealogy bloggers using it. I do see a lot of lifestyle and mom bloggers use it. Quite frankly, the reason I use it is because a blogger can earn significantly more money doing that than they can with Google Ads. So that was the first thing. You have to reach a certain number of sessions per month. I think it's 25,000 sessions per month or something before you can even be considered for Mediavine ads. And then once you do, they have just fine-tuned everything so much that once I set it up, they have their ads do what they call lazy loads, so that all the content loads first and then the ads will load. You can add videos. They have a really nice high fill rate for the ads on a page, on a blog. So it's been an amazingly smooth transition for me when I went to Mediavine ads. I've been doing them for about 14 months now, and I've been very, very pleased with that. And every time they keep us updated, and they'll say, okay, you might want to look at this and update this on your website or update this in your settings. And every time I do, I see a positive effect on my ads. So it's been a really good relationship as far as ad management.
Were you using Google Ads or something else beforehand?
I've used Google Ads in the past and wasn't as successful with that. And I had another one that I can't remember the name of, quite frankly. And it was okay, but I still wasn't earning what I could with Media Bond. To be honest, when you're in the blogging world, and when I say that, I think lifestyle, mom blog, that kind of blogging world, travel bloggers, everybody's goal is to get to the Mediavine threshold, because we know that the potential for earning is so much greater there.
Well, that's really interesting. Let's talk about how you tackle your blog. Clearly, you're looking at your blog as a business, which I think is different than most genealogists, because most genealogists are looking at their blog as a marketing vehicle. Mm-hmm. But you're actually looking at your blog as the business. So you're making decisions like, how do you decide how often you need to write? And how do you decide how long a blog post is going to be?
Okay, so I make my decision right now. I blog. I try to get a new one out every week. Ideally, I would love to do it twice a week, but I am one person and I just can't get that much more out. In addition to the other things I do. So I try to do that. I aim for about 1,200 words as a minimum. And the way I decide that is just good SEO practice, current SEO practice, which is search engine optimization. When you have those longer posts like that, Google views you as an expert, and then you show up more in the search. When somebody searches on a particular genealogy topic, then you're more likely to appear in the search results on that first page. So that's what decides the length. I'm actually going back in and updating older posts so that I can get some more length, because in the end they just need to be updated as well. I do that periodically as well, just because new stuff comes out. That's what decides really how long a blog post is. I aim for that, but if I have a blog post that just doesn't go that far, it's good information, it's solid information, and it's 700 words, that's perfectly fine too. The goal is making sure that I'm giving good information to my readers.
And what are the components of a blog post that are critical for its success, such as images and things like that?
I think the first component is to know that I'm writing something that my readers want to read about. And so I learned that through my emails with them, because I'll ask them, what's your biggest frustration? So, what are you struggling with? And so really there's no topic that I write about that they have not actually asked me about. So I want to make sure I'm always meeting that need. And then when it comes to writing and the actual components, I'm typically looking for kind of an introduction. I like to use photos as much as I can if they're illustrating a point, particularly if I'm doing, like the post I did today on the Chrome bookmark. I took a lot of screenshots on that just so that people could kind of see what it looks like and how it works and make my point that way. I'm a visual person, so that helps me as well, helps me with my writing. And I try to keep it, break it down in sections. Typically when I write a blog post, most bloggers will write really fairly short sentences. So it's not like a paper you would write in English class. In fact, if my English teachers read these things, they would probably just, they'd flunk me right there, because I write like I talk. So I keep it very conversational, but I typically keep my paragraphs 1 to 2 sentences long so that it just helps people's eyes. It helps them move down the post a little bit easier and keeps them moving things. People seem to stay on the page longer that way. And then I'd break it up with photographs as well.
Do you use an editorial calendar, or how far out are you planning what you're going to be writing about?
I do. I use an editorial calendar. Sometimes I used to use just my Google Calendar. I would just basically write it out on that. Now I created more of a system for myself just out of Google Sheets, kind of a spreadsheet type thing. I try to write 4 weeks ahead of time. Sometimes I make that, sometimes I don't. I do try to keep it at least several weeks ahead of time with that, so that when I write that blog post, I can at that time go ahead and create a YouTube video that goes along with it. I can create topics for my Facebook Lives, and I can get my social media created at the same time.
So what is influencing what you're going to write about? Is it what's happening in the genealogical community? Is it maybe new databases coming out by a big database company? Is it what you're seeing from your readers in your Google Analytics? Is it what the people are saying in your Facebook group?
I think it's a little bit of all of that. Probably the biggest thing is what my readers tell, what they're telling me, particularly my new readers when they come in. One of the emails that they get in the sequence of emails I send out is, can you tell me what is your biggest frustration for genealogy research? What are you struggling with the most? And I give them some choices, and they will usually tell me which one it is. Typically, it falls into one of 5 categories. So that's a good way for me to get a good idea of what they're looking for. The next thing I do at that point is go into Google Analytics and see what's the most popular post. I can compare it over time and see what types of posts they were coming for. I tell the story that I never intended to really write about old photographs on my website. And I did one time. And to this day, it's still probably one of my top performing posts. And it was written several years ago. And people were always commenting on the photographs that I used, because when you see a photograph of like an old family type photograph on my website, 99% of them are actually my own photographs, and they are my relatives, because I joke that if they're going to take up space in my closet, they have to earn a living if they're going to live in my house with me. And so I'm just waiting for them to come back and haunt me now. People were asking me about these photographs. And so when I had some unknowns, and I went about and I had some good luck, and I learned how to identify them, and I wrote about that. And so that was a way, again, looking at the analytics, it said, this is something people are interested in. They like what you're saying. Keep moving forward with those topics.
You said earlier that you really focus on the beginning genealogists. I'm just guessing, but I'm thinking that they're not already part of the genealogy community, which really, if you think about it, is pretty small. So what level are these beginners at? I mean, have they just watched a television show and now that they're interested in genealogy, or do they actually have some genealogy skills? And so how exactly are they finding you?
I would say that probably the largest percentage of my readers are probably that late beginner, maybe even moving into early intermediate. What I've been seeing in the last year is I'm getting more true beginners. And they're saying, I don't have any frustrations yet because I'm just started and I don't know where to start. And so then I point them in the right direction with my blog post. I really do try to reach outside. I'm hoping to get folks who are outside of the genealogy community because it is small. And I frequently ask people, I'm like, if you're new, or if you have friends who might find this interesting, please just forward the post, forward my links to them. I'll be happy to, for them to join us as well. So, and with that said, I have some very, very advanced researchers who follow my blog posts and who are very talented in their own right with their research. So I have the whole gamut, but I'd say the majority of them are going to be that kind of late beginner.
So let's talk about YouTube for a little bit. I'd love to understand a little bit about your journey from when you first got a crazy notion, because anybody who does YouTube it has to be a crazy notion, to, oh my God, I'm going to film myself, to getting pretty comfortable with it. Because I just watched a video of yours and you look pretty comfortable on camera.
Oh, thank you.
So can you tell us a little bit about how you felt when you started and how you've gotten to where you are now?
Sure. So I started actually doing some little YouTube videos actually a number of years ago. And I know that because when I go back and look at the videos, I'm like, that's my old house. I don't live there anymore. So I know that when about the time period, they were just what I call them Tuesday's genealogy tips. And they were actually to be on the website. I didn't think anybody would ever see them over on YouTube. That was just the parking place so that I could embed them into a blog post. And again, started seeing people were going for it. Then I started realizing there was a lot of potential here. And because I wanted to create so much content on the website, because I wanted this to be a business, I wanted to create content, I realized that this was a good way because I can talk, if nothing else. As you can tell, I'm from the South. I like to talk. And I just sort of had to kind of get over that whole, I don't want to see myself on camera. I just thought, well, you know what? I'm just going to do it. That's really how I did. Just going to do it. I started talking, and I don't script it out. I do write when I'm talking. I will have bullet points that I want to discuss, but I don't ever it's never written like verbatim out when I do it. And so I just start talking with it, and discovered I really kind of liked it. And they're fairly easy for me to do in the sense that they take less time to do than a blog post. So that helps me also get a little more content and help people find it out there. And again, when I realized that YouTube had a big potential and that I had potential to actually monetize with YouTube and still meet the needs of my audience, I actually took a course from a woman who does a fabulous job on YouTube. She is what is she now? She was a lifestyle blogger, and now she's more of a she focuses on women and entrepreneurship and small businesses. And she had a fantastic course. So I bought her course and learned how to do YouTube.
And what's the name of that lady?
Jessica Stansberry. And her YouTube channel is, do you know who that is?
I think I might have seen her recently.
I think her YouTube channel is Hey Jessica. It used to be. She's undergone she's got a podcast too. She's undergone everybody goes, that's the whole thing. It's like things I did, they all have undergone these big old things, changes. Yes, her name is Hey Jessica. She's got her YouTube channel.
All right. So I just went on your YouTube site, and you have, 31 rows of video times by 6. Oops.
Wow.
Hold on. I have to use my calculator. That's 186 videos.
I didn't know I had that. I have that many? Really? I did not know.
So you started 5 years ago. That's that's how many you have. That's incredible.
I had no idea I had that many.
There's one particular blogging experience that I definitely want to make sure that we talk about, and that is a blog post that you wrote about Google Books. Tell us about that.
Last summer, I wrote a blog post about how to use Google Books and how to use it for your genealogy research. And interestingly enough, one of the Google Books folks actually found that, and they contacted me because last fall was the 15th anniversary of Google Books. Initially, we were asking me about it and said, we've never heard of this particular use. They didn't know much about genealogy, and so they had a lot of questions for me about genealogy. And one thing led to another, and they're like, well, would you be willing to be videotaped? I'm like, sure, why not? And so it just kept leading to one thing to another till finally in I'd say in the beginning of October, they actually flew me out to San Francisco and filmed me to be part of one of their featured users for their Google Books video and blog post. So that was a really exciting time. And it was really fascinating because while I was there, in talking with the crew, they really, with the exception of one person on there, they really knew nothing about genealogy. They had a lot of questions for me. I don't think I was quite what they expected when they knew a genealogy researcher was coming. They were just shocked because they had no idea that Google Books could be used for what I was using it for and the types of books that were on there.
I'm just a little shocked that people at Google Books have no idea about genealogy and genealogists, because I'd say genealogists write about Google Books more than anybody, I feel like.
Well, I think so, but part of that is that, so the film crew, they're not actually Google Books, they were the film crew. So they were the film crew hired to make it. So the producer knew more about it because she was the producer and the director. They knew more about what they were looking for.
Okay.
But the folks who initially contacted me knew some of it. They just thought it was an unusual thing. But again, they were quite young.
And just for fun, walk us through that day, the people you encountered, what you got to experience that day as part of a film crew experience.
I'm sure. Okay, this was so cool. So it was very surreal, actually. So they picked me up and they actually rented a house to do the filming that day. So to make it look sort of like I was in my home office, because I work in a home office. They had asked me if I had any, and I did. So I took some photographs, copies of my ancestors, like to decorate the desk with, to have on the desk. And I had sent them pictures ahead of time of what my office looked like so that they could get kind of a feel for how I worked and the things that I worked with. And so the first part of the day was really just an interview, and the producer was there and the camera guy, and they would she was asking me questions. And so it was all about, Google Books and how I used it and examples of how I used it for that for genealogy research. And then the afternoon part was what they call the B footage, B-reel. I think is what they call it. B-roll. That's it. And so what that was things of me like at my desk or coming up the steps and going to the kitchen and making tea. So I was actually in somebody's house and I was making tea. I have, in their house and, sitting at the table working, and then they had me at my desk working, and I would make phone calls, kind of pretend phone calls with that. And so that was just really a ton of fun. And they were a lot of fun to talk with and learn about the sound. And they had this haze machine that would make it look hazy in the morning. So it made it look like I was like early in the morning making a cup of tea, sitting at my desk, getting my day organized. It was really cool to be able to do that. But there was a whole crew of another probably 4 or 5 people who were there who were in charge of things like monitoring sound from another room, everything from setting up the house the way they wanted it set up and taking care of that, getting lunch brought in, everything like that. So there were probably 10 people there, all for just this one filming experience.
So did they spend a whole day filming you?
Yes. So it was a whole day. And
ultimately, what were the end products that you appeared in?
It was a video, and it's on their culture blog, Google's culture blog section. And so I actually appeared in only about a minute and 45 seconds worth of video there. So they cut a lot out, obviously, but it was a lot of fun to be over there. And I was one of 4 that they interviewed and featured on that website, on that video.
Isn't that crazy? A whole day of filming to work down to a minute and 45 seconds.
It was really interesting, but the whole process was it was just something I've never done before. And
now, having gone through that experience, would you work more intentionally to create those kind of opportunities now that you know that they're out there? I mean, that's a little bit different because it was like a 15-year anniversary, but given the opportunity, would you work towards that kind of thing again?
I think I would. Yes, I definitely would, because not only was it a lot of fun, it was good exposure for me, but I mean, it's exposing so many more people to genealogy world. And the other thing that I really liked about being able to work with Google Books is the opportunity to not only reach people who aren't familiar with genealogy, but to show genealogy researchers there are a lot of resources out there that are not basically genealogy resources, but they can still benefit our research. And I think we have to be able to go out and understand those and not be afraid to find those to benefit our research.
As you've been building this genealogy blogging business, what would you say was the most difficult aspect of creating this business?
It's very slow building. I will say that. That's probably some of the most difficult to do. So that's the hard part of it.
So how did you stick with it? How did you know that you were doing the right thing?
This sounds silly, but I just had a gut feeling, because it was when I would sit down to write, it's like when you get in the zone, so to speak. I just knew it when I did it. Don't get me wrong. I had a lot of doubts, before. There would be times I'm thinking, why am I doing this? This is really, is it really worth it? But there was always something, and every time I doubted it, I would get a comment from a reader thanking me, or, really an encouraging comment about how much I was helping somebody with it. I knew that I was on the right track, and I knew that I just needed to stick with it.
How long did it take before you said, yes, this is a viable business? I'm on the right path. I'm doing the right thing. I can keep going with this.
I was probably a good 3 years into it before I was like, I think this is, that this will be viable and I can move forward with it.
So it just goes to show you, with anything, any aspect of being a genealogy professional, whether a speaker or a writer, all the forensic people, bloggers, whatever, it takes a lot of hard work. There's no instant, you're going to start making a lot of money tomorrow sort of thing.
Right.
Yeah. Just adding that for our audience.
Yes. Yeah.
If they have any doubts about that, there's no way around it. There's just a lot of hard work involved.
There's a lot of hard work. Yeah.
And I would think that that's probably like that in any business, not just in genealogy. You know, even
I think so.
if you're a mom blogger, a lifestyle blogger, a travel blogger, or anything, it's hard work and perseverance if you want to be successful.
Right. And being open to trying new things with it, such as, adding the Facebook Lives, adding the YouTubes, adding all the different pieces. I didn't start out doing all of that at one time.
Well, Lisa, we do a thing here on the podcast called the lightning round. Have you heard of that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we're gonna head into the lightning round and basically just a time to ask you some quick questions, get some quick answers that might help all the genealogists out there who are listening and thinking about having a business.
Okay.
All right. So here we go. What was the one thing you were most afraid of in starting your business?
That nobody would read it. Nobody would read my blog.
What's the best advice you've ever received from someone else?
Don't be afraid to make mistakes.
What is one specific action listeners can take in the next 24 hours to help them transition into a genealogy career?
They need to start their email list.
If you can recommend one book for our listeners, what would it be?
I think the one that I like is it's called Stories That Stick. It's by Kendra Hall, Kindra Hall.
And what's that about?
It is about how to use storytelling to capture your customers' attention and transform your business.
Give our audience one parting piece of advice and then tell us how we can get in contact with you.
Guys, don't be afraid to look outside the genealogy world, whether it's starting a genealogy business or whether it's in your own personal research. And don't be afraid to look for the sources outside of the genealogy world. And you can find me at my website, which is lisalisson.com.
Lisa Lisson, thank you so much for being on the Genealogy Professional Podcast today.
Thank you, Marion, for having me.
Today we learned from Lisa Lisson that there's much more to business blogging than we ever imagined. We learned about a new ad provider, Mediavine, and a new email list provider, ConvertKit. We also learned that interacting and really getting to know your audience is one of the best ways to figure out which content to provide. Lisa also showed us that education, even outside the genealogy community, can go a long way to pushing us forward in our business goals. For news this week, a reminder that the podcast is now in Spotify. So if you're a Spotify listener, be sure to follow the Genealogy Professional Podcast there. The podcast is now also on YouTube. I know that's not really a podcast platform, but I'm putting it there for those people who spend most of their time on YouTube. And lastly, be sure to join the TGP podcast group on Facebook. You can find it by searching for TGP Action Group, or you can find the link in the show notes. For your action item today, I want you to focus on your education. Lisa saw specific items that she needed to learn in order to make her blog function as a business. What do you need to do to function as a business? Do you need a website that attracts clients or readers? Do you need a mailing list to communicate with your clients? Do you need time tracking software or a bookkeeping program? Think about what tool would take your business to the next level, and then do some research to determine how to find classes and to make that happen. That's it for this time. Until we meet again, keep improving your business skills and take at least one step to push your business forward. The Genealogy Professional Podcast is a production of Fieldstone Common Media. Copyright 2020. Executive producer, Marion Pierre-Louis. Creative producer, George Edwards. Technical director, Jean-Luc Pierre-Louis Jr.